Welcome everybody to the March 10th public hearing. We've got notice in the paper here at the Village of Red Hook on March 10th. Public hearing tonight is on the village's budget setting season here, and in compliance with New York State law, we are to address a 2% tax cap, which this year is really by all measurement 1.66%. The 2% is the max. What I mean by that is the state also looks at the cost of living over the year, cost of living CPI type indexes, and right now we're being told it's actually 1.66. So as we are in budget setting mode, we need to be aware of the tax cap, and as everybody knows, last year we did stay within the cap. This year we've been drafting some tentative models. We don't have our final tentative budget, that's a little misnomer there, but we have until March 21st to have a tentative budget out to everybody. But we do also have a timeline to deal with whether or not we will exceed the cap, and the accepted process is to pass a preemptive local law that will enable the village to exceed the cap if we so choose. The timing has to be set up this way. You can't really do it further into the year. You have to have it done as you're adopting your budget and so forth. So what we've done in the past is set this up preemptively. Council has drawn up a local law. It's a one-page document. Right now, for the public hearing part, we would just be looking for input from everybody, but what we can do amongst ourselves is just reiterate a few things, what we're doing in the budget while we're waiting here. What we'll do later, my intention is to, in the actual formal meetings session, address it as local law 2 of the year 2014, and then we would, amongst ourselves, have actual formal discussion and vote at that point. So, just to repeat, it's really all the departments have checked in with what they would like to have for next year, and the board is sitting and looking at those numbers. And at the same time, we do feel it would be in our interest to have this in our repertoire, to have it endorsed and passed by the board should we need to exercise something over the 2%. Again, that would be the perspective for me on the public hearing, and if we don't really need comment from the board. If anybody wants to say anything, feel free.
The only thing I would like to say is that if we take notice that other than Honorable Jonah Treewasser, we have no one in the audience at this point.
And what we did was noticed in the paper, and it was all promoted properly. So how one interprets that is not clear. Keep it open for a moment here in case anybody looks at it, and then we'll probably get ready for our regular meeting. So given what Mr. Trapp just stated, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing for local law number 2, the tax cap.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing closed.
Sitting room.
All rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 10th, 2014 Village of Red Hook Board meeting. We just completed a public hearing on the New York State tax cap regulations. We'll be working on that later. Tonight we have a special guest for early in the meeting, so I thought we might break our routine a bit. But first, after calling the meeting to order, I would like to just go over the clerk's minutes and get that out of the way before we hear from the judge. We did have a regular board meeting on February 10th, and on the same night we had a February 10th public hearing, which those minutes are in your packets. And then on March 6th, we had a budget workshop, which also made your packets. I've gone through them. The February 10th meeting dealt with the zoning changes and pattern book insertion. So it's rather complex, and you'll see a few parts where we noted copies of the pertinent documents are in file with the clerk's office instead of copying all the exact documents to the minutes. If that's fine, I'd ask if there's any other additions, alterations, or corrections. With a motion to approve those 3 sets of minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. As I mentioned, Judge Treeblasser's here, and he's been up to his annual solicitations to help improve the operation of the court and therefore the village. So Judge, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. It's a pleasure, as always, to appear before you to advise you that, once again, the Red Hook courts have obtained grants to assist the operation of the courts at no direct cost to Red Hook taxpayers. This year, the grant here in Village Court numbers $3,028.73. And that's to cover the expenses of 2 folding tables that we put up when we have trials here for the 2 attorneys, and also some additional security paraphernalia for the court to protect the public when they come to court and protect court staff. Because this is security items, if you want details, I would respectfully request that we do that in executive session because of the sensitive nature of that. However, if you add up all the grants we've gotten since Judge Martin and I first came to the bench in 2007, it numbers more than $75,000, both for the village and town courts, the lion's share of which, by the way, comes to the village court. In fact, I'm proud to say just about everything you see in this room, with the possible exception of the seats, was paid for by a court grant from, that we applied for from the state. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the grant or other court operations within ethical constraints that the board may have or members of the public.
Just for clarification too, I know each year we talk about it, but the grant comes from the state of New York, and
That's right.
What department within the state?
The Office of Court Administration. And I would be remiss, Mr. Mayor, if I didn't say that this was a team effort. Our very good village clerk and treasurer, Cindy Cole, helped out to prepare the grant. Of course, the board gave us the resolution we needed to pursue it. And my court staff here in the village, Danielle Tashburn and Kathy Fell, as well as Kathy again in the town, and Nancy Roberts and Judge Martin, all assisted in preparing the grant applications. So again, if there's any questions for anyone, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Maybe later.
Later?
Yeah.
Okay. You can find me. No, I'm right next door.
Gotcha.
All right?
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Take care.
Take care now.
See you.
All right, we'll go back to our regular order in my plan. Treasurer's report. Cindy, would you like to give us that?
Account balances, general fund $69,242.73, water fund $55,797.45, trust and agency $16,582.58, materials management $6,715.95, petty cash $61.79, village green $3,260.41, hard scrabble $3,407.03, health insurance $1,240.66, capital projects $4,183.09. Monthly expenses, general fund $113,651.56, water fund $94,235.99, trust and agency $16,582.58, and materials management $3,077.93.
Just a couple questions from me on the water fund. That's a big number. Is that the large storage tank payment?
Yes.
Was that about 50?
And the second half of the budget obligations go to general fund.
So that storage tank, that is the last payment.
Yeah.
So it's about $50,000 a year. When we say storage tank, there's the blue harbor store style tank over at the well fields. So that's paid off. And
It's
then-
gonna be a bit of a relief, huh?
Yeah, well, the interesting part, it sort of interlocks with the phase 1 cost, so it's kind of designed and planned for one almost supplants the other, so to speak, but well, it's a good thing. And Cindy, when you say account balances up in the general fund, that's after these expenses, like, this is what's in there right now? Or?
No.
No?
Some are, as you and I discussed, is, like that general fund expense is 2 payrolls, and all utilities, health insurances.
I didn't follow what you mean. This is the expense part here, but when you say account balance, when you,
So this 113,000 a portion of that bill, those bills are already paid.
Right, yeah, I get that part, but in the 69,000.
Mhm. In the 69,000, I believe there's 47,000 more to be paid. So
Of
that-
the 113.
Yes.
And then what we did at our budget workshop, at the end of February, we had March, April, May, 3 months left to go, so the end of the month, this report is dated 10 March 14, so it's 10 days into the next month, but the budget lines seem to be holding up fairly well as far as, at 75% a year, they should be holding. I think we were showing about 83% of budget across the board. And like we said at the workshop, though, most of the major bills are already paid, so it's just some end of year rotating costs that come up routinely. The big contracts, the big bills, all that's been paid out. So. But we do have to watch cash flow, and we did send a memo indicating watch overtime, watch the 20-hour people, try to keep cash flow as best we can. And thank you. Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion at all?
Is some of the fund transfers that we did in workshop, is that gonna be reconciled on the spreadsheet soon, I
It will
guess?
be, now that the minutes have been approved.
So that's what we're waiting for.
Next, we have a police report. I don't know, I see Patrick came in. Do you want to present that?
Sure. For the month of February 2014, our total incidents were 230, 158 in the village, 69 in town, and 3 in Tivoli. Total UTTs were 89, total arrests 16. Outside of the police report, a couple things this month. This past weekend, we had Parent University, Development High School. That was for all parents, K through 12. They had a long list of different curriculums, which went really well. We had a good turnout. The Reading Police Department, we taught narcotics awareness for parents, and we also taught cyberbullying, which is a big topic. Also, this past weekend, 2 of our members played in the Hudson Valley Guns and Hoses big hockey tournament that's held down in Beacon. Travis Starrett and Tom Mirabella played. It's pretty much cops versus firemen, and they're all good players, just to benefit all local families in need. So that was this past weekend as well. So, any questions?
Yeah, right, on here you got welfare check,
Yep.
what's that?
A welfare check is if you called us concerned about a relative, maybe elderly, we go, maybe someone has called the residence throughout the day, hasn't got a hold of somebody, we'll go and check on them.
Okay, so
And,
it's personal welfare.
Welfare check, yep. Any other questions?
I'm going to statement, just, I went to the Parent University for the morning session. It was pretty impressive. Tommy D was there, and Patrick, and then the duty officer was just standing around for a little bit and then went back to work. But
Yeah, we had an SRO booth at the front entrance. When people came in, the whole entrance of all our SRO information, our drug take-back box, the training we do, pretty much an overview of everything we do in the school.
yeah. Tommy D gave some talk, and it's kind of interesting. He described how he got his associate's degree at the urging of his mother at that point in time.
Correct.
Then he was started to work as a full-time police officer. He got his bachelor's degree from John Jay,
Correct.
and that was at the urging of his girlfriend. That he was
Right.
with. And then he decided to go on to his master's at the urging of his wife. So it was
Correct.
kind of interesting.
He says all the women in his life push him to get his education, so,
And,
yeah.
but then it led to, he's retired now from the city of Beacon, and then we have him work part-time, so we get a double benefit. We have somebody with a master's degree, he teaches college at SUNY Ulster.
Yeah, Tommy's background teaching that classes, he worked 22 or 23 years in the city of Beacon. The last 6 years of his job, he was drug task force. Then he worked in New York City for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics for another 8 years. in New York City. So, you know, again, with teaching background, the drug background on his end, and you know, in my end, you know, it works out well. We're teaching people like the classes, so.
I don't know what the timing was, but about a month ago, there was a local person who died from a heroin overdose, so that's a hot topic in the school age group. And
It's a hot topic across the county. You know, it's in every town. It's something that has grabbed the interest of a lot of people. So.
Tommy D lends his expertise on that.
Great. Anything else?
Also, have you or will you be starting foot patrols?
We already have. If you look through here, every shift, every B line, every C line, we do foot patrols random throughout the shift. Multiple business checks. We've also about a month or so ago went to every business, got all their contact information, because we do find sometimes open doors. People leave, shut the door, and it just doesn't lock. So every business in the village of Red Hook, I have information, emails, cell phone, home address, secondary contact for every business owner. So not only foot patrols, but we're doing business checks obviously as well. Throughout the night, and they're all
Because one of the things I'm seeing, Patrick, is I drive through town at different times of the day, on weekends and everything, is we're getting a limited number of people using the crosswalks. They're crossing wherever they please
sure.
in the roads, and it's, you know, being dangerous, but it also puts a real crunch on the traffic trying to.
It does, you know, you know, for a small village, we do have a lot of traffic that goes, you know, through here per day, you know, and we do a lot of foot patrol. Again, you know, some days we have one car on, so, you know, between answering calls and doing the foot patrols and doing reports and accident and a lot of things that we do, and, you know, we do have a lot of conversations with some of the, you know, young adults about either skateboarding in front of cars or running in front of them, but people do cross outside of the crosswalk where it's convenient, so.
Okay, and the last thing is that email that you had sent out to us about the officer down there at Bard College,
Yep,
bringing that, being with that person that
Yep.
had passed out. I forwarded that on to Mickey Struwinski,
okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, he did,
because I think he ought to be recognized.
yeah, he will. I was gonna bring up, you know, maybe I didn't have a lot of time, and I wanted to fill you guys in on the end result, unfortunately, of that, but he will be, probably the next meeting.
Okay, but like I told Mickey, I'd like to see him recognized on the accountant level also.
Yeah, I agree, you know, we're gonna do it on our level, as well, but we'll do that, come to the next meeting, a little more prepared.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, Steve, while you have the floor, why don't you go into water for us?
Okay, the water report for February of 2014. We pumped 7,045,000 gallons of water in February for a daily average of 251,000 gallons. In February of 2013, the plant pumped 6,812,000 gallons for a daily average of 243,000 gallons. It represents an 8,000 gallon per day increase over last year. 2 water samples were sent to Smith Labs for the microbiological testing. One on February the 3rd, the other on February the 10th. Both results were negative. 2 analog reading water meters were changed out for a new radio read model in February. Do you know how many we still have outstanding out there?
Not off the top of my head, it's about 8 or 9.
The steel entry door to well 3 was replaced. The old door was rusted beyond repair and no longer secure. There was a main break on February the 18th on South Broadway, just south of Firehouse Lane. During the repair process, it was discovered that the valve for that section of water main was non-functional. And a new valve was installed so the repair could proceed. The stainless steel clamp was used to repair the 4-inch cast iron main, and service was restored. So that also could add to the water that was pumped. The residential water line ruptured on Park Avenue in the second week of the month, which was determined to be on the customer side of the curb valve. Waterhouse filter in an unheated space had frozen, rupturing the cartridge cup. And that's the report.
One thing we'll talk about a little bit in the regular business section too, but I thought we might start defining a word, like in Steve's report there, the wording is, there was a main break on February 18th, South Broadway. I brought some pipes here, these are laterals, not mains, of course, these small ones, and the board has had the opportunity to look at them, like the public too. I think we have to clarify something as far as definitions. A break in my mind tends to imply something sudden and possibly accidental, meaning it could be frost related or heavy truck related or something breaking something. What we're finding in cases when we open up and expose the pipes, they are deteriorated, decayed, worn out. So it's an important thing to talk about. It's not something that's defined in space and time as an event you contribute to. It's just things wearing out. And it goes to when we talk a little bit later about phase 2, what we need to think about, because when you look at Cindy's treasurer's report and then also the normal water balances and then the breaks we've been having, we are pushing a lot of repair money into the system right now. And it's not a great thing, but we'll talk about it more when we get to regular business too. Thank you, Steve. Let's see. Looks like Mr. Trustee Trapp, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir. Let's see here. Address the reports at this point. Monthly report for February 2014 for planning and zoning. 5 building permits were issued in the village. 1 certificate of occupancy was issued. 6 certificates of compliance were issued. 2 municipal searches were conducted. There were no fire inspections and no complaints responded to. There were 13 regular inspections that were relative to general issuance of building permits. The planning board on February 25th had a meeting which was postponed from 2/13 and bad weather. So basic things, couple of signs and lead agency and notice sent for they were working on a subdivision and there were no items for the zoning board of appeals. As for the money tendered in February 2014, it's a pretty nice number, $4,748.50. But I must add that $2,500 of it was a water service application that just gets passed through the building department and goes into the water fund. Is that correct? Yeah, so that then I'd be in the neighborhood of $2,200 somewhere in that neighborhood. But nevertheless, for February, and what a not a great weather month, so we're very fortunate to have that much those funds coming in. As is always the case, Ed and I chat for a good while every day. We have our morning coffee chat at like 7 o'clock in the morning. We're still chasing certain violations in the village building code, existing building code, and things like this. And we're working through those things. There's some issues that are going through the attorney and all. So at this point, just be known that we're following up. If you see some things that you find aren't too terribly pleasing out there, we're doing our portion to follow up on those. Something I think I neglected the last time I had this venue here is that I'm a member of the Dutchess County Planning Federation Board of Directors, and our job is to educate the planning boards and zoning boards in Dutchess County. And we were very pleased and honored to be noticed by Northern Dutchess Alliance for our work in such things. So And a couple of you guys were there at the breakfast down at the Beekman Arms, and it was very nice. We received a little award for it, and you know, it's a volunteer position, and we generally work pretty hard to try and find the best educational programs that we can for the planning boards in Dutchess County and zoning boards. And other than that, Ed, I think that's probably enough at this point.
Thank you. Two thoughts from myself. Earlier today, I sent Jay an email. We did get notice, if you recall out there, that the Village of Red Hook joined with 11 other municipalities to seek a county grant to do an updating of our software systems for the planning and zoning department. And we were successful in getting the grants being coordinated through the town of Hyde Park. And they do have a meeting, which I noticed off to Jay, it's a week from Wednesday, where it's called a kickoff meeting. And we've asked our support staff to gather all the paper forms and whatever forms we have. The goal would be to somehow condense and combine them into something that could be up in the cloud and people could retrieve it easily from websites and so forth. So
And it's also a real-time reporting in relation. I mean, they intend to provide, and part of the grant is a pad
yeah,
that the building inspector will take into the field, and when he has to take pictures of certain actions, he takes them, and they're automatically uploaded to the system, the software held at the county, right? Yeah. Okay.
so that'd be good. And then maybe one thing, Jay, looking at it, we do see 13 inspections, but they look to be building inspections.
That's right, no fire
We should probably
inspections.
look at our annual status on our building inspection.
I think it would be something that we should do, yes.
Thank you. Let's see. I think we could skip to Trustee Norris. You want to go next?
Sure. Excuse me. For the month of February, we're talking about materials management. For the month of February, we had 5.69 tons of single-stream recycling, 9.51 tons of garbage, and we paid out $1,052.99. We sold $2,738.50. Garbage tags. We're having a spring cleaning tag sale for the months of April and May. When you buy 10 blue or red tags, you'll get one free. That's only here during village hours. So April and May, stock up and start cleaning. And just a reminder, I say this every time, the less garbage we put out, the less we pay. So with single stream recycling, I mean, our numbers are pretty good. It's about, 50% is recycling. We're also about to enter compost season, so the more garbage we don't put in, the better for us all, because we have to pay per ton for garbage. So if we can get that number lower, we will all be happy. Events. The Red Hook High School will perform the musical Little Shop of Horrors. It's directed by Debbie Temple. Shows are this week, Thursday the 13th, Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with a matinee, Sunday the 16th at 3 p.m. They're doing something new. You can buy your tickets online at seatyourself.biz/redhookhs, or you can certainly purchase them at the door as well. Also in theater news, the Mill Road Intermediate School will perform William Shakespeare's The Tempest. That's directed by Cindy Kubik. That is for, the cast is grades 3 through 5. Shows are Saturday, March 22nd at 11 a.m. and Saturday, March 29th at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. The performances for this will be held at the Rhinebeck Performing Arts Center. Tickets can be purchased by calling the box office at 876-3080. The third annual camp fair will be held Tuesday, April 1st, between 5 and 7 at the K2 Mill Road Cafeteria. It's just great planning for parents. A lot of area camps are there. You can get your brochures and start to plan ahead for summertime. So that's a nice event. And then we have a lot of literary things going on. The Big Read just started. That's in conjunction with the Red Hook Library and Bard College. We are reading Housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson. Events again have already started. It will continue through May. They include railroad lectures, book clubs, film screenings, and activities for children. Information for that can be found through the Red Hook Library website. The third annual Read Local Red Hook Literary Festival will be held Friday, April 11th through Sunday, April 13th, with events including children's books, big read discussion, and Hudson Valley actors reading short stories. For more information on that, you can go to rhcan.com. And then just focusing on the library itself, they're going to have one-on-one job search help for resume and cover letter writing, online applications, etc. From 3 to 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 18th. So if you need help with that, you can check that out. There's also going to be a financial fitness workshop, 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, March 22nd, and an elder law workshop from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday, March 29th. So there's a lot going on. We're also working on our spring roll, or egg roll, egg hunt, whatever we call it. Dates to be determined, but I'll have that information certainly by the next meeting. So,
Do you think you could have that for the newsletter?
deadline is,
Well, the water bills go out the end of the month.
oh yeah, I honestly am surprised I didn't have it today. I'm just waiting to hear
That would
from
be nice to
Matt.
have it in there.
But yeah, I will, as soon as I get that, I will give that to you. That's all I have.
Just a couple more notes. Tomorrow morning, I plan to meet with the people that organize the Red Hook Village Farmers Market. To get that going again this summer. Trying to upcharge it a little bit, meaning get a little more vendor participation and a few new ideas. But we'll have to bring that back in front of the planning board just to get another annual approval for their presence. And the goal would be to have at the same time Saturdays 10 to 2. I'd like to try to get the merchants group active in it somehow too. So does a little retail and farm support all combined. So that'd be good to do. And then I know we keep making this pitch, but one can tell it's a Thursday in the village of Red Hook when one hears loud and large garbage trucks from outside the village coming down our streets. We'd rather it be less noticeable that it's Thursday because big trucks are in the village. The only way to do that is use our garbage tags, hence our promotion, the spring cleanup sale. Dan and the highway department are much quieter, much gentler on our streets, much lighter in the truck. So I don't know how many potholes are bigger because large trucks have gone over it in the mud season here. But think of us when you think of garbage. No, that's not a good thing. Not a good
Be careful.
But seriously, we're much quieter. We have a really high recycling percentage, and we'd like to keep our cash flow going there. That being said, let's see. Steve, I know we have you on around session two here. Do you have anything on facilities? I know we talked about the Time Warner conversion and all that last time, but anything you want to update us on in that world?
No, I don't, Frontier hasn't come back to me yet.
Okay. On our building, I have asked for some people to come. We had another ice dam event after the last February 14th storm. We reported to our insurance, and we need to get somebody on the roof once it warms up to give us some figures. And when talks budget, that's something we're talking about. It looks like for some reason where the main old building joins the new annex, the water's backing up under there and it's still coming in. So we'll have to get some estimates and we'll look at that. That's a facilities issue. And let's see. We did have a workshop with the Red Hook Fire Department, trying to find a way to give them some more parking at one of our other facilities over at the Red Hook Highway Garage area. So they're still working on it. It's a work in progress on that. But that's designed not to cost us any money. That's just to help the community and help the fire company. Let's see. We then have. It's time for Deputy Mayor Kowalczyk to go.
Now let's start with the Village Green Committee. Current balances of the Village Green Committee's related budget accounts are as follows. Community beautification, you have $2,872.30. Shade tree contractual, $4,280. And our Village Green checking account, $3,410.41. There were no Village Green meetings held during the month of February. And the New York State Arborist, the New York State DEC, and New York State Urban Forestry Council will host a tree risk assessment workshop at 3 locations in Lynbrook, Carmel, and Syracuse. And Village Green members can contact Brenda or myself for more information. And village residents can purchase a dedication plaque, say in honor of, in memory of, dedicated by, for $125. Proceeds from the sale of the plaques, these are for the benches that we just recently installed, will be deposited in the dedicated Village Green checking account and used to pay for the cost and installation of the plaques as well as village community enhancement projects. 15 plaques of the original 23 benches installed have been purchased and installed to date, and people interested can contact the village clerk's office at 845-758-1081. Village of Red Hook Highway Department monthly report. The snow ordinance is currently in effect until March 31st. No parking is permitted on village streets from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Vehicles parked on village streets may be towed before, during, or after a storm to facilitate snow and ice removal. Costs for towing and vehicle storage will be charged to the vehicle's owner. And residents are also reminded to remove basketball hoops, sports, and other equipment, if they haven't done so already, from the sides of the streets to allow for snow plowing and snow storage. The village will not be responsible for damaged equipment remaining on or near the streets during a snowstorm. The owner and or occupant of every building, lot, or lot in the village with an adjoining sidewalk shall remove all snow and ice within 24 hours after a storm. This winter has been particularly rough on the whole community, and we've assisted where we can. At the discretion of the village board, the village highway will remove the snow and ice left uncleared on a sidewalk after 24 hours at a cost of $20 per linear foot, and that is part of our village law. And snow was removed in the general business district twice in February, one on the 6th and the other on the 16th. And the village highway department was assisted by Frank Vosberg, excavating and paving contractor, Dave Vosberg, Fast Tracks Incorporated, excavating, J.S. Agnes, excavating contractor, Thomas LeGrand, excavating in the town of Red Hook Highway Department. And the cost for removal will be deducted from the Red Hook Village general fund account for snow removal contractual expenses. And no scrap metal was sold during the months of February. The total revenue generated to date for fiscal year 2013 and 14, actually 2012-13, all right, 13-14, is $4,186.28. And we usually anticipate about $2,000 revenue, but we've had a banner year this year, 3 more months to go. Since inception of the scrap metal recycling program in September of 2007, $16,076.17 has been generated. And proceeds from this program go toward purchasing tools and equipment for the village highway department. And residents and business owners interested in donating scrap metal can contact the highway department at 758-8600 or the village clerk's office at 758-1081, and the highway department will assist property owners and residents by picking up scrap metal upon request.
Hey, Brent, if I can interrupt you.
Yep.
Two things. One, just informational for everybody. As Brent said, that one storm that ended, February 15th, 16th, in that range, was our 3rd heavy snow of the season. We did clear, but myself and with concurrence of the board, I signed an emergency order only to allow our highway guys. Technically, we cannot clear private sidewalks by rule, but we have a dilemma in the village of Red Hook in that when Main Street is a state highway, we get an awful lot of snow we can't push ourselves, meaning it's put there by the state, and it was just horrendous mountains of snow. And so the emergency order allowed us to clear corners, hydrants, catch basins, and then where we could open up sidewalks, in particular on the routes to school and so forth, so on. So if you saw us out there, that's why and the reason for the emergency order was to circumvent that penalty clause that we have. If one recalcitrant owner doesn't shovel, we'll go and shovel and charge back. But this was deemed to be so severe with the amount of snow we had there that we went that route. Then it was just more of a lighthearted thing on Brent's number 5, scrap metal. I was over there today dropping some off, and to our benefit, somebody dropped an old Coca-Cola machine in there. I have no clue who had a scrap Coca-Cola machine hanging around, but it must weigh a couple hundred pounds, so we'll take it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a little bit more revenue on that one, but. Intermunicipal Task Force and Red Hook Infrastructure, monthly report, the Red Hook Sewer Project, the New York State DEC and New York State EFC engineering and planning grant documents were approved by the Village of Red Hook Board of Trustees on March 6th. These included a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute agreements, contracts, documents, and other instruments to fulfill the village's obligation under the grant, and also authorized and appropriated a minimum of 20%, which works out to $7,500 as a matching obligation in either in-kind services or in through funds. And the estimated project cost is $37,500. $30,000 we got in grant funding. And we also identified the project as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEEKR. And this grant award will be used to conduct a surface and subsurface water quality study and to prepare an engineer's report for submission and scoring to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation intended use plan. Placement on the IUP, the intended use plan, determines priority status and eligibility for municipal sewer districts and systems capital funding opportunities. So again, we're starting the funding search for this stuff. Red Hook Water Projects, the USDA, New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation Phase 1 of a water project, which were the well field improvements and water meter replacement project. Change orders for Contract 1G, which is Trinity Construction, Prime General, has been reviewed and approved for reimbursement by New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation on March 3rd. A revised minority and women-owned business enterprises utilization plan was also submitted to EFC by Trinity Construction prior to the change order approvals. And remaining work by Trinity includes security items and abandoning wells 2 and 8 at our current wellfield location. Payment applications number 5, 6, and 7 from National Metering were also submitted to USDA for project closeout approval on February 13th. A meeting was held on March 3rd at the Red Village Building to review and revise the village's water withdrawal permit and water service map as required by the New York State Department of Health and regulated by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The USDA EFC Phase 2 water project, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about, which is the water distribution system and water storage improvement project, updated information regarding the current water rates, typical water rates for a typical single-family home user, current rate of water loss, inflow and infiltration, current situation of uncollectible accounts, water record-keeping methodology, and use of service organizations such as the New York State Rural Water Association were submitted to the USDA for use in determining the PFE, which is the preliminary funding estimate. Estimated costs and preliminary funding determinations for Phase 2 is approximately $3.8 million. The Intermunicipal Task Force on February 7th, the task force met with Aldridge and Claudine Close of Historic Red Hook and Michelle Gregg of Green Plan Incorporated to review the local waterfront revitalization policy and the New York State Historic Resource Policy regarding the proposed Historic Landmarks District and Historic Overlay Districts of the town of Red Hook. On February 21st, the task force met to review and discuss the Historic Resource Map being finalized by Historic Red Hook for consideration and inclusion in the town of Red Hook's zoning law. The task force met on February 28th as well to further discuss the Historic Resource Survey map for the proposed Historic Preservation District. The task force met with the Red Hook Town Board, I guess 4 members of the board, the Red Hook Town Water Commission, representatives from Kirchhoff Properties, CT Mail Associates in the Village of Red Hook, and also the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority to discuss water supply and district formation for a proposed Red Hook Town T&D development.
Okay, can I jump in again?
Absolutely.
Just for the board, premise number 1 on this report. I attended the State of the County message, I guess 6 days ago, whatever it was. And the county too is recognizing the importance of developing the centers, and with that helping with infrastructure, including central sewer. Not that they're offering money, I don't think they have any funding, but they're saying that they see it as valid.
When, according to the State of the County address, there's a plan already in place that we use for farmland protection. Part of that law also included assistance to municipalities doing water and wastewater projects. The county executive, along with private investments, are considering putting in $5 million into that fund. So we'll be looking to get some of that money as soon as we're up and running, ready to look for the money. But
Then his number two, member board at the workshop, we were talking about that new Dutchess County Department of Health fee. It's not monstrous, it's $120. Since the workshop, we did get some clarification on that. It is a new fee, something we never paid before, and it's to help them offset some of their costs, it looks like to me. But it is $120. They are offering, since some municipalities didn't have time to budget for it, and some have more districts than we have, they're offering, you can pay 2 years in the next budget year, but for us, it's only $120, so we might as well put it in our budget this year. Okay, Lynn?
and then we're onto the Red Hook Town Economic Development Committee. Both Ed and I sit on that board, not as members, but as representatives from the village. EDC meeting was held on February 19th at the Red Hook Village Building, and we reviewed proposals for vacant business locations in the village. Considering coordinating and collaborating with events and marketing with various groups and organizations in the town and village of Red Hook. We're intending to develop a list of businesses most appropriate to attract to Red Hook. Discuss the Community Preservation Fund's New York State enabling legislation for revisions, possible revisions. We are discussing brand identity for Red Hook's groups and organizations. And we're considering creating a commercial contact list and database to aid in marketing, communication, and collaboration. The Community Preservation Fund and Farmland Protection Advisory Board, which I'm a member of, there were no meetings held during the month of February. The Town of Red Hook, Villages of Red Hook, and Tivoli Shared Services Committee, both Ed and I sit on that, representing the village. There's a meeting on February 12th, was held at the Red Hook Town Hall. Roundout Consulting and Fairweather Consulting were selected to study the shared highway services for the town of Red Hook and villages of Red Hook and Tivoli. On February 25th, Supervisor Sue Crane signed the Dutchess County Municipal Consolidation and Shared Services Grant Agreement with Dutchess County. And on February 26th, a meeting was held at the Red Hook Town Hall to review and sign the agreement between the town of Red Hook and Roundout Consulting to pursue the study of shared highway services between the towns and the villages. A copy of the agreement is on file in the Village Red Hook building. Of the total $79,000 grant that was awarded, $44,950 will be used to pay for the consulting services. The remainder will be used for administrative and legal fees associated with the grant. The Red Hook Town Zoning Review Committee, which I'm a member of, there were no ZRC meetings held during the month of February. And Red Hook Together, again, both Ed and I sit on that one. It's a large group of people that usually attend these things. The Village of Red Hook hosted the last meeting on February 20th. Jen talked about the library. The Red Hook Chamber of Commerce is hosting its 3rd annual summer camp fair at the Red Hook schools on April 1st. There's Dutchess One Stop at Ulster Savings Bank offering support and work options and resources for recently single again women. On May 1st, the annual Red Hook Area Chamber of Commerce golf tournament and fundraiser will be held. And a tentative date of November 22nd was scheduled for the 1st annual chocolate festival. Details are forthcoming. And a Panda representative was there. She's actually filming tonight, Danielle, and she talked about recent broadcasts, which include the swing dance event, the cooking show, the Red Hook Can Family Matters exhibit, and Historic Red Hook. Bard College Citizen Science Program recently completed outreach program including over 3,000 students from Hudson, Kingston, Rhinebeck, Red Hook, and Pine Plains schools were involved. The Bard International Studies group are currently looking for events and activities to involve the Bard College international students with. Bard branches which is another group. Plans are underway for the Arts Weekend to be scheduled in April. And the Bard College Center for Civic Engagement, the Red Hook Big Read featuring housekeeping. Upcoming events include the kickoff at the Rhine Cliff Library on March 2nd, which already happened. As Jen mentioned, this will be a 6-week program. Red Hook Can, Kaleidoscope, Sand, Movement and Color, Expression on Canvas, a solo exhibition by Trevor Hunter, which opened on Saturday, runs through April 6th. And that's all I have.
That's it. Your radio in the audience. Just in line with some of Brent's reporting here, one item, the town and Village of Red Hook and Village of Tivoli shared services work. One important thing to note is that's another county grant where we work with the other 2 municipalities, and consultants will interview our highway department, people in the administrative executive level here, and then the other highway departments, and put together some plans, some options, some ideas. We get to look at it and decide what we're going to do. It's not a given fact what we will do, but we're looking at modeling and options to see how or what we can do to save some money in highway operations. Again, it's granted, the reason the town signs agreement, the county wants to deal with one party. The town doesn't control the outcome, it's just they get to be the ones signing the contract with us as participants. And so that should be, any day now, they should start interviewing our staff and so forth, so it'll be interesting. And we do acknowledge, and I think it's important for the audience to realize that what we do in the village is very service-oriented, meaning we have smaller streets, we do leaf pickup, brush pickup, garbage pickups, different things that don't happen in town. We feel the need, at least my perspective, is to preserve those things. Town is more of just flying large cloud vehicle than rural issues where we have, we're no way a city, but under New York law, we're the closest thing to the city. Any village mimics what a city does. We want to continue those services. So we would hold that in our points, and plug those things in and see how they work out. Moving on, I think we hit, I have X's next to all the department reports. Number 2, budget workshop status, just again for the public, we're meeting every Thursday. In the village municipal law, we have to have a budget set by a certain point in time. We're working on that. What we do, public is welcome to come, but like I said earlier in the workshop or the public hearing part, we have heard from our department heads, and we try to plug in what we can afford, what we think we can do versus what we'd love to do. So it's a tough world in that financial world, so to speak. But we'll keep working at that. Then let's see, on that same budget workshop, we had picked Thursdays, and Trustee Trapton, part of his job duties of taking him away certain Thursdays. Have you been able to rectify that, or should we correct some of our meeting dates for you? One thought is, if he can't make it, we'd like to have him there at least some of the time. Wednesdays we can move, but we do need public notice to change him. We have to meet this Thursday because we've noticed it that way, but I don't know.
I'm working to switch the hours an hour earlier from 5 to 7 so that I can get here by 7:30, and I don't think there's gonna be an issue with that, so it'll be fine. We'll just keep them to Thursdays if that's okay.
Yeah, it works, because like I said, this Thursday we couldn't really change it with the public notice rules, and then, so we'll leave them at Thursdays then.
Same time?
Same time, 7 o'clock. On the tax cap, while we're talking budgets, in front of you, you have the local law resolution. What this is, folks, it's a preemptive step. The village, in compliance with New York State law, if we exceed the tax cap, we have to have a local law approving such excess. Last year, we were able to stay within the cap, which was great news. And quite frankly, this year, we're looking at, two or three things that it's, the cap is, the first thing is, the cap is at 1.66% based on the CPI, which in the world of government and business, 1.6 cents is, might as well be zero in some ways. It's, things are going up, and we do want to keep providing services, but, so what this local law has to do is work on a budget. We're not making a commitment now that we'll be over or under the cap, it's just it gives us the ability to be flexible with whatever we have to do. So we call it local law number 2 of the year 2014, and the text is pretty much boilerplate. It has to be filed with the Department of State after we vote tonight. What I would do is offer it up as a resolution, and we'll have some discussion. We would fill in the blanks with tonight's meeting date with the clerk and the local law number. So I think we have to really put that, the meeting time was earlier too. But anyway, Ms. Cole, would you like to read the document for us?
Resolution number 7, 2014, whereas the attached local law was introduced to the Village of Red Hook Board of Trustees on March 10, 2014, and provides for the authority to override the provisions of General Municipal Law 3-C. Whereas a public hearing was held on March 13, 2014 at 6:45 p.m.
You said March 13th, March 10th.
March 10th, I'm sorry. At 6:45 p.m. at the Village Hall, 7467 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York. Notice of said hearing duly published, and at which time all interested parties had the opportunity to be heard. Now, therefore, be it enacted by the trustees of the Village of Red Hook. And it is local law number 2, 2014. Local law authorizing a property tax levy in excess of the limit established in the General Municipal Law 3-3, Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to allow the Village of Red Hook to adopt a budget for the fiscal year commencing June 1st, 2014. It requires a real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit as defined in General Municipal Law 3-C. Section 2, authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to subdivision 5 of General Municipal Law 3-C, which expressly authorizes a local government's governing body to override the property tax cap for the coming fiscal year by the adoption of a local law approved by a vote of 60% of the said governing body. Section 3, tax levy limited override. The Board of Trustees of the Village of Red Hook, County of Dutchess is hereby authorized to adopt a budget for the fiscal year commencing June 1st, 2014, that requires a real property tax in excess of the amount otherwise prescribed in General Municipal Law 3-C. Section 4, severability. If a court determines that any clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or the application therefore to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstances is invalid or unconstitutional, the court's order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder of this local law, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in its application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation, or circumstances directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. Section 5, effective date. This local law takes effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
That's the last section. So is there a second on the resolution?
Second.
Part of discussion. I did some preliminary speaking on it. Like you said, it's not a given what we'll do, this just gives us some options. Looking at it, I know we all sat in the budget workshops. Any comments from the board? Any questions? Hearing no discussion or question, but call for a vote. All in favor of adopting local law number 2 to give the village flexibility and exceed the tax cap if needed, please vote aye.
Aye.
I heard all ayes, I believe. Thank you. Let's see, maybe we'll break sequence. I see some folks in the audience that might be here on a mission. Mr. Queen, do you have a exhibit you want to show? I know Mr. Queen What do you, let's see. What do you have there? What are you gonna show us? While we're waiting, I'll introduce what we're looking at. It's, David Queen is representing people who live around Red Hook Pond, as we define it. It's behind the library back in that area. So they asked to be on the agenda tonight, so they are on the agenda. And it sounds like, are you ready to go?
Yeah, Mayor Blundell, members of the Red Hook Village Board. The purpose of appearing here is to address the unresolved drainage problems involving storm drains that have resulted in property damage during 2008 and from the combined August to September tropical storms Irene and Lee in 2011. 19 properties are affected surrounding the 2-acre pond, and 11 other properties under which the 2,400-foot 8-inch vitrified tile pipe from the pond and 1,282-foot 18-inch pipe from the highway. I've color-coded them. The blue is the 2,400-foot 8-inch pipe, and the green is the 1,280-foot 18-inch pipe. Both outlets into the former Mossino Pond area near the Red Hook Senior Housing known as Red Hook Commons. Both outlets were damaged during and remain plugged after the brownfield cleanup operations were finished. The situation still exists depending upon unpredictable condition of soil, whether it's frozen or saturated, with the duration and the intensity of the storm, for future property damage of flooded basements, damaged furnaces, blocked septic fields, and possible electrical safety issues. The solution is simply a case of cleaning out the pipes and restoring the outlets to working order. But getting this done is like the old saying of leading a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There is resistance by the governmental authorities to perform the necessary functions to get the work done by either disclaiming responsibility or ignoring the problem. This would involve the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the County of Dutchess, due to incomplete brownfield restoration work, the New York State Department of Transportation, and the Village of Red Hook for cleaning the 18-inch line from Route 9 to South Broadway, the storm drain. The Village of Red Hook attending to the Kramer Vlad, I call it Kramer Vlad because of a reference in an old deed, pond drain by working out something with the pond watershed owners. The question becomes, who will step up to the plate and perform their governmental responsibility? The 8-inch vitrified pond drain was recited in a Poughkeepsie, in a Red Hook Journal article. I can give you a copy. That was copied over in Bard College. It was installed during August to November 1889 and extended to Mossino's Pond in the southwestern corner of the Village of Red Hook under contract from George H. Kramer. This was through lands then of George H. Kramer, Henry B. and James Armstrong, and Robert L. Mossino. This George Kramer at that time owned, you might as well say, the whole block between Elizabeth Street, what they call Depot Street, 5th Street, South Broadway, and the back end of the properties on Tobacco Lane. He owned the whole block. The lands, this has since become property of the Roasted Garlic LLC, Sykes property, Diamond property, South Broadway, St. Christopher's Church, the Irons property, O'Callahan, which is a UBS property, and Kearney Realty Development, and Red Hook Senior Housing. In absence of a documented filed easement, the route is affected by implied drainage easements. Richard Cole, a former village trustee who at this time is in North Carolina, told of the village hiring to have the 8-inch line cleaned. The village minutes of June 1953 show Charles Coon was paid for labor pumping the swamp, and the village minutes of August 1st, 1955 show William L. Princeton from Rochester was paid for draining the swamp, which confirms Dick Cole's memory. The village minutes of October 3rd, 1949 show that the village of Red Hook was claiming ownership of the Mossimo Pond land. I don't know how, but that was their claim. And I made a contact with Gary Arold of Arold Construction in Kingston. They are in the business of cleaning pipes. They have the rotors and they have the cameras. He estimated for the 8-inch line 2 to 3 works at $3,500 per day to snake it and to clean the 8-inch line with their router and camera equipment. The aerial photos of 1970 and 1980 this is a copy of the minutes where Princeton was paid.
It was what, 1953? 49? 55?
I got something. There. I think it's probably put it back in. I thought I had more separated. They're in that group. Anyway, the 1970 aerial photos shows the area of Kramer's Pond as drained, and you can see the ditches. And this is what several people have told me, that the people used to drain the pond and plant corn there and so forth. So in the area of Mossino Pond in 1955 is the last photo I have of the full pond that would match this pond. This is what that area looked like now. You still have a little water, but you can see that the inflow has been diminished, this water coming in. I blame that partly on the plugged line. In March 2012, that's when the village went over. I believe it was March 2012, and the state located the pipeline, the state pipeline, the 18-inch line, and the village went over with a backhoe and they uncovered it. This is, I'll go back to this. I'll find a picture eventually. The 18-inch storm drain from Route 9 to South Broadway was installed by the New York State Department of Public Works in circa 1949, 1950. The village minutes of October 3rd, 1949 recite, this is quoted, "The New York State Department of Public Works has agreed to and has undertaken to put in a new drainage system to alleviate the bad drainage condition upon South Broadway near Garden Street in the village of Red Hook, and whereas said drainage system and a tile drain runs from South Broadway to the village pond land known as Massino Pond and enters on pond property of the village of Red Hook." That was that part. I say, this is my quote, "This implies that the village requested this work to be done and owned the pond area. New York State Department of Transportation claims that the village is responsible for maintenance under Section 46 of the highway law, and apparently, I say apparently, the village unofficially disputes having this responsibility. To their credit, the New York State DOT cleaned the St. Christopher's Church manhole and worked with the village in locating the buried pipe outlet in June 2012, but promptly they covered it over again, rather than clean and repair. They found the line and basin full of silt. The village pumped water into the line in 2008, which broke out of the ground near UBS loading dock and flooded the area. The flood point is beyond the UBS building. Actually, this is their building, this is their loading dock. The water came out of the ground here and just beyond the edge of that building. This, to me, is the flood point is beyond the building. I had concerns whether the building had blocked the pipe, but I don't believe that's the case anymore. It was beyond the building, about 250 feet from that last manhole that they uncovered. The village and the DOT disclaim responsibility. I personally disagree with New York State Department of Transportation's view that the system is functioning adequately, because their statement was, "We have not had any flooding or drainage problems along Route 9. This could very well be because the water going in there is coming back through the pond. That's my, and I asked before the village for permission to do the dye test to check this theory. In the interest of safety, it seems that the DOT and the village of Red Hook would work together to clean the pipe, and I feel that would circumvent the legal issue of who's got the maintenance responsibility, because you'd be working together. The other problem is it sounds like the village asked them to do it. You know, that puts you in a different position. It's not like that they did it for their own reason. With respect to cleaning the outlets at Massino Pond, that involved the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the County of Dutchess under the Brownfield Cleanup Program, but were damaged and buried probably because they were unidentified on the plans. I met with Mayor Blundell in December and asked that he write to the Department of Environmental Conservation and obtain their assistance in repairing this damage under part of the remaining 1996 Clean Waters, Clean Air Bond Act that funded the Brownfield program. The article in the Poughkeepsie New Yorker said that program is still in existence until 2015. I don't know what and absent-minded I am. I took that in my hand. I was looking for the picture. And I turned them upside down.
David, can you wrap up soon? Can you wrap up soon?
Yeah, that's it. This shows you the Massimo Pond, or the former Massimo Pond. It was all regraded, and it's I guess I'm not gonna find it. No, that's it. I don't want to take it down. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. One of the other community folks here, if you want to bear with us, he gave us some facts. We can finish our meeting and go to public comment, and if you want to input anything else. I think it's important for everybody in the audience and people watching on Canada that what he's stating, we're familiar with the nomenclature, everybody might not be. There's an old 1889 drainage line that runs from what's called Kramer's Y. In those days, so 1889 was 125 years ago, plus or minus, according to my math. And then what he's referencing as the 18-inch line is the state DOT catch basin drainage lines that were built in 49, is correct. So even that's quite a while ago. The village board is very aware of the issue behind Fisk Street and in that area. And we've been trying to help folks get something together. Mr. Queen's trying to be helpful too. But the underlying problem has always been privately owned land, and everything we see, the George A. Kramer line was all funded by what would be the precursor to a transportation corporation in 1889. It was some sort of swamp drainage system endorsed and enabled by the state of New York. The adjoining owners all created a district and charged themselves assessment and maintenance fees. And we've been struggling with it. It's a problem, but if you hear us, we're a municipal government and that's private property, and that's been the underlying catch. And then the state DOT thing, that's a different issue. We were hoping that some examination of DOT lines would reveal something about the old 1889 line, but it really didn't. So anyway, we'll let that go. We'll move into some other things in our meeting. If anybody got a notice from Central Hudson about a rate increase, or not a rate increase, but the bills and so forth? I thought if the board so voted, I'd like us to write a letter to Central Hudson for a couple of reasons. We're also ratepayers. It's something I never knew of. Even though they were bought by Fortis and, quote, haven't requested their rate increase yet, they're able to pass through their energy costs, which to me makes absolutely no sense. When we buy fuel oil, you can lock in your fuel oil rate in the spring, summertime. How can Central Hudson not be able to lock in supply costs of huge dollars? Pardon?
Can we take the presentation materials down at this point? It's like.
Yes, okay, I'll finish my thought. What I was gonna say is, I thought we should generate a letter to Central Hudson just saying, hey, what's with this rate increase? Because we're also a big customer. Our streetlight program, we budget $55,000 a year, and I checked our recent bill, and it's the January bill we're looking at, and it hasn't shown a big increase, but I've been contacted by residents and business folks saying their bill has doubled, and it's unclear to me. So it's, but that.
Indeed.
So it's something I thought on our letterhead we would write to our contacts and just have them explain more. I just don't quite get it, so we would do that. What Jay was signaling me, David, if you could take down your presentation board, there's people hiding behind it.
I don't know.
Peering
I
around.
just wanted to show you those ditches there.
Okay. We'll come back to you folks. But,
I wanted to ask you, were you in contact with the environmental conservation?
yeah, I would, let's defer, let me keep moving my meeting and we'll talk about you guys in a minute. You acted like you were done, so I moved on and we'll go back in a moment. towards the other item on our regular business, the water billing budget analysis. This is where we agreed we'd retain an outside firm to help us look at our water costs, our water budget. They expect to have something in during this week, so I'll get that out of the way. It leads us into the other big item there, water phase 2. Like we said before, there's some definitional issues with what we're fixing in our water system right now. We did get, maybe Brad, you want to fill us in a little bit too, the USDA/RD has given us a positive letter that they're offering us the Village of Red Hook phase 2 money. And what that is, if you listen to Brent's report, it's very technical, but it's storage and infrastructure work. What that means is more storage facilities so we can decommission the large elevated tank over here. We have costs to paint and scrape and redo that run, I think, about $800,000 if I recall right. We can build a new tank for less than that money and develop a different type of water pressure system. And then within that, the oldest section of the village is in phase 2, meaning, say, from Broadway, East Market, toward Benner Road, that quadrant, which is the more densely populated, older piece of the village in comparison to certain other neighborhoods. Money, this board would have to decide, and we would have to go through some formal bonding steps and so forth and cost it out. But we did ask that outside consulting firm to give us some numbers on that too. It's coming in, it's a $3.8 million project. It's a 38-year term, and the USDA said 3.75% interest, which phase 1 was at far less interest than that, but it's the nature of the market right now. The economy's perked up a little bit, so the financial costs are a little higher.
It's 3.5%.
3.5?
Yeah.
But
And this is part of a $9.2 million overall water project. We've just finished phase 1. Phase 2 and phase 3 would be the remainder of the village water distribution system to upgrade basically our mains to make sure we have adequate supply and pressure for fire protection and also for supply for domestic water. So this is a big overall project that USDA has approved to do it in phases based on what we can accommodate as far as the loan goes. And so this has been ongoing for a while. The engineering reports have been all turned in and submitted and reviewed and approved. So phase 2 is the one we're acting on now. Phase 3 will happen in the future possibly, and that would include a grant from USDA on top of the loan.
it's not our intention to vote on it tonight or anything, just to talk about it amongst the board and in the public too. Like I said, I'd be willing to pass around those 2 pipe sections there. What it's important to know that what we define as breaks in our pipes are really not. They're just worn out and having trouble. And you know, a lot of our regular attendees and Steve and myself, one of our big questions has always been, we're pumping X gallons at the wellhead and we're selling Y gallons over here. There's a big difference between the numbers still. So we think it's going somewhere in the ground, and sooner or later it's going to catch up to us. The downside is it costs money. It's not free money. It's $3.8 million at 3.5% for 38 years. The other option is to do a piecemeal. Unfortunately, piecemeal tends to be repair, and then you get a patchwork of repairs sitting everywhere. So I think this board will have to put our heads together and see where we want to go. But in my opinion, it's an overall positive step that we've been offered the money. And what's good about a lump sum project is you can engineer, design it, build it, and get it done instead of taking 20 years. And we could look in the workshop at our water budget, how we pull down the fund balance there, fixing up a lot of the breaks and so forth. I should stop using that word myself, a lot of the failures of the system. That being said, I think the board could just think about that over the next week or so and make some more steps. And it is a bonding step where we need public input and public hearings and so forth too, if we go there, so it's not going to be a secret or anything. I might walk the pipes around myself, talk about some parking enforcement. I see Patrick left, but we had an interesting thing. The local merchants, about 6 weeks ago, through the Economic Development Committee, approached us and said, hey, there's people violating a 2-hour parking rule. A lot of our merchants depend on somebody stopping, shopping, leaving, whether it be buying coffee and food or a retail establishment, or whatever. And the village does have existing 2-hour limits within the business district, we'll call it. And so we tasked our PD, and one of Steve's questions was leading that way. We're doing foot patrol, and they are enforcing a 2-hour. But it comes back to haunt us in 2 ways. One is some business owners are parking their own vehicles in front of the businesses, which to me is a little counterintuitive. You want the customer to come in and spend the money, not have your car parked closely. So we'd ask them to, most of them do have rear parking and so forth, but they could park in the back. And they're also hurting, they may not be a retail business, they may be a service business, but they're hurting somebody who's a retailer right around the next lot or two. But then what I'll call an unintended consequence came up over the weekend. This board has worked super hard to redevelop and get new businesses in the village and do everything we can. And we have this secondary parking regulation, which the police are aware of. It's our snow season, no late parking rule. I'm paraphrasing it, but it's after 11 p.m. you can't park on, and our code is worded any public highway. And I think this board, our belief was, it really applied to our streets that we plow. In other words, where our crews can't get through and so forth. But reading the law, it says public highway. So in the parking enforcement routine, the PD has put some tickets on people violating the 11 p.m. in the central business district. So I'm thinking this board, we have to look at our current code. It was written years and years and years ago. 2 things cross my mind is many of our businesses now have customers after 11 p.m., the restaurants especially, and I don't see where we can penalize them for the 11 p.m. rule. So 2 things, we don't plow those roads, so it's not our staff that has to worry about getting around vehicles and so forth. And the state comes by more frequently than we do in general. So if somebody's parked there at 11:30 and leaves at 11:45, the state's going to come through again. So I'm thinking, take input from the board, and again, we don't need it tonight. Ironically, our snow rule disappears March 31st. There's only 3 weeks left in the season with the limits. But the point is, we need to address that second part of the law. It's actually a separate and distinct code. It's not even in the same section in our books. We need something to say. One suggestion would be something where we say streets and highways that are accepted are state highways, or highways plowed by others than us, which would be county and state, and something that where we're kind of talking about our role. Because the flip side of it is, we're really good at notifying. You hear Brent say it every meeting, and we put it in the newsletter. We can notify our residents, but if I'm a visiting customer at a restaurant, I don't know the red of the village 11 o'clock rule, so I'm going to get nailed. And this, in my opinion, is not what we want. And so we have to find a way to exempt that. So we'll work with everybody. Like I said, it came up in some specific issues this weekend, and in the effort to help everybody, I think we need to do something.
I think it's appropriate, as Brett had in his highway report, he said, village streets, and obviously that's not a village street, nor is 199 a village street.
I think what jurisdiction we have on state highways too, and you said because the way the law was written, it stated all highways.
Yeah, Jay, you want to put 190/28 in here? You get the book down there?
Yeah.
190/28? Yeah, we've always thought it to be the village streets, so it's really not. I'll let him read out loud.
Almost there.
What time does like Charlie O's and Bread and Bottle and Cancun, what time do they close?
I say it's after 11, that's for sure.
Well, they should not, obviously be penalized.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, like, if
Yeah.
we knew that they closed at 1, then could we change the law to say 1:30? Or
I think it'd be more appropriate just to say village streets that are maintained by the village of Red Hook. Because we don't do that,
Yeah. But Jay, you could read that first sentence?
Sure. Seasonal all-night parking, section 190-28. No vehicle shall be parked on any public highway within the corporate limits of the village of Red Hook between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. during the period beginning November 1 and ending March 31st of each year. both dates inclusive. When any vehicle is parked or abandoned on any street in violation of Section A, said vehicle may be removed or under direction of the police department. Okay, let's see,
That's
section,
actually, it's the first,
that's
first
a-
sentence.
yeah, the
is
first sentence is
broad
sufficient.
statement. Any public highway or any
It also
highway-
said may be removed, so there's some discretionary.
Well, we're not removing them, we're ticketing them. So it's, but I think we need to clarify.
I think we chatted about this, and as a board, at one point, I don't know whether you remember, Brent, but at one point, we had this discussion, and we talked about, oh, well, what about the central business district? We can't ask those guys to get out of there at 11 o'clock, because they are open until 12 or 1 or something like that. And I guess we never moved on it, we discussed it, but I don't think we resolved anything at that point, and I guess in some sense, we could have done a better job at following on.
So it's just a matter of clarifying the terminology of village versus other entities, roads and highways, such as the county or state.
Yeah, I think there's a way to do it. One is just use any other entity. We're not gonna enforce it on their streets as one, or change the time. I don't really wanna hash out right now. 3 weeks it goes away, and we'll indicate that we wanna do something to get it corrected. And
How many people were ticketed, are you
I
aware?
asked for that number today. I don't have it
Okay,
yet.
okay.
So, I'll have that tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, is there anything that we can do for those people because of our own ambiguity?
I have some thoughts on that too.
Okay.
I'm talking with our village attorneys.
Okay.
That being said, let's see. We did that. Alright. As far as, we let Mr. Queen talk, and we do have other folks. One thing I talked, or I heard him say was, he mentioned 19 properties affected. I've never seen that big a number, meaning there's 6 or 7 adjoining property owners. I don't know where you get,
Tax parcels.
I mean, 19 tax parcels, so somebody owns 2 or 3. But, I don't, we could open up the public comment now, if anybody wants to say anything.
A question on the police report. This time you didn't give a breakdown between the village and town for V&T and arrest.
Oh, we have that.
Did you have that up there?
I let my, other guy do it, so I'm gonna read it.
We have,
Yeah, you usually have it.
you want V&T,
Yeah, he gave the incidents, but he didn't break down the V&T and the arrest.
UTT uniform,
I can do it.
alright,
I think he gave the gross numbers, I'll repeat it, 230 incidents, and, the way it broke down, 158 in the village of Red Hook, 69 in the town of Red Hook, 3 in the village of Tivoli. As far as traffic tickets, 89 total, 58 were in the village, 21 were, let's see, nothing heading that one.
That includes, the 58 included 21 parking tickets.
Okay, it's a new category here, I guess, with the street patrol. And then town of Red Hook is 31 tickets, the rest were 16, 3 were in the village and 13 were in the town.
On the V&T, what was the town and village? The total was 89. So town was,
No,
Town was 31, village was 58.
town was 31, 58, okay. Thank you.
here's Bard.
How come there were 3 in Tivoli when Red Hook no longer covers Tivoli?
We always get this question, and the answer is, we don't cover it for contract, but when we're on town patrol, if something happens up there where they end up in Tivoli, is the answer I get.
We don't get any money from them. They didn't want us. Why should we
Town,
cover?
it's a town event, they break it out just on their report that one happened, or 3, we said, 3,
Mhm.
3 in Tivoli. But no, we're not patrolling Tivoli, we're somewhere around there, or it ends up in Tivoli, so that'd be the answer.
And there are times, and I think that, mutual aid would be, a call would go out and they would request any additional officers in the area, and sometimes our guys respond. Sometimes it's like it says, let me see, it doesn't say incidents, whatever it may be, like the the young person that, I guess had, was it a heart attack?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was called mutual aid, and that's when one of our guys went up there to help. You know, it's obviously, you know, not something that we were prepared to do, not something that we were on duty for. But when you get a call like that, sometimes you just feel obligated to make the move and do that sort of thing. You know, we've had this conversation before, you know, about, you know, if you don't get paid, then you're protecting the village and you go somewhere else, then who's protecting the village? So we've had this conversation that we would prefer that you stay here unless it's some sort of special circumstance or something. I mean, we could find out what the particular issue was around that, you know.
What account does the revenue go in now? That you get from the court? You know, you get a monthly, you know what I mean? Where does that go? General, where?
General fund, yeah. Court.
And where does it get dispersed after that? Does it get broke down or what?
Yeah, it does. Goes to, well, court, and we also get town contract payment, and we get school resources.
Right.
They all go to
We
general.
seem to have an awful lot of paper here and that being given out just in the village. We got a lot of paper being given out in the village. I was just curious, you don't want to chase the people out either.
Paper, you mean tickets?
Tickets.
Yeah, no, to answer your first question, it goes to the general fund, and then it's broken out. From there it goes, pays expenses across the board.
For the police department?
Pardon me?
For the police department or what?
You know, general fund is apportioned across, they don't fund their operation by.
What's against the law too, yeah.
So, I have a piece of correspondence here. We got in line with some budget talks. Right now, we're talking about brush pickup and so forth. We had A.W. Kuhn wrote to us and said they're they would like to take the brush and leaves from the village at our collection points, and they're offering a proposal. I need a little clarification. It says we offer to pay $250 payable to the village. I don't know if that's per truckload. I kind of doubt it, but
It says that for the collection of all.
There's the word all in there? All
Yes.
brush. Yeah. Collection of all brush from the village. The 2014 season, so we'll have to look at that when we're in the budget talks and see if that's about.
So that essentially sounds like a composting sort of thing.
Okay. Any comments from the board on any general? Pardon?
I'm just my quiet flower over here. Couple things. I wanted just to ask a question about the ticketing.
Who?
The ticketing that
Ticketing.
goes on. We're happy about it, obviously. We're happy because we're trying not to have speeding down the road. We've talked before, you and I, the mayor, regarding putting up a speed sign, not a sign, but a lit sign, that even if we can get the businesses in the downtown to contribute and sponsor once a month, whatever it happens to be, so that people will identify that this is a slow passageway instead of crossing from one light to the other. Are the tickets that are being issued primarily right here on Route 9 in the village?
You know, I don't know if I can answer that. They're speeding, which would tend to be the open streets, where you have the ability to speed versus stop sign on the side streets.
There's a fair amount of speeding where I live too.
And
I mean, you notice it because that's where you are, but where I'm at, I notice it as well, so.
You've got stop signs though, coming
Well,
from the road.
that's the theory.
Well,
Here. What
oh, I mean, we always have
generally-
lights going on outside of our building, so
Certainly.
we don't, and we're happy, it's not an issue for us. But what we always say to our guests very carefully is, this is maybe a one-horse town, but it's a fast horse. Please wear your seatbelts and please follow the speed limit, they can see you pulling out of the driveway. I really encourage slow driving, but what's happening is, even with the crosswalks, we just tried to cross tonight. I had to put my hand up to stop the man. Is there any way on the crosswalk, just for safety purposes, Nabil will tell you, I don't let him cross from our house. I make him walk down the block to cross over, because if you wanna do it right, do it by example. Is there any way we can put those, I think they're called deer lights in the crosswalk so that as a car is approaching the crosswalk, they can see them. You don't have to put a sign in there, but they can see them lit or blinking at them or,
We actually proposed that when, I think way back when we applied for the West Market Street sidewalks as part of Safe Routes to Schools, and we were advised that they tried it down at Marist College, down there, and it actually was more of a hindrance for traffic because of the lights. It was acting as more of a distraction rather than a deterrent for speeding. So that was a rationale we got from DOT.
we lived in Jersey and we drove down a lot of dark side streets in our, area where we came from. And they were in the middle of the street, so they would alert you that you were coming to a corner or that, especially deer, there were deer in the headlights. We had a lot of deer in the neighborhood. But I think that would help, instead of putting the sign in, which gets knocked down constantly.
Well, we could certainly revisit that.
I appreciate that, just for us. And then the positive side that I wanted to say is, we were gone, thankfully, most of the winter.
Oh, you are.
Not with money, believe me. My husband will tell you, I'm on vacations to go, and at the last second, I said, pack your bag, we're leaving tomorrow. That's how we went on cruises. But we, basically, the removal of the snow is a blessing. And I'm really appreciative as being a person in the village. They did it when we first had the restaurant open, when we came here 10 years ago. 10 years is our anniversary this year, we can't believe it, 10 years, in November. And when we first came here, I remember hearing this horrific sound outside, and the people, patrons in the restaurant were saying, what's going on? And of course, that's when they were removing snow, so we got used to it. Then it stopped. And having it come back, it's a nice clean area. I had a guest who parked overnight accidentally because I have a sign on my front desk that says no street parking, just as where I can do it. I can help, I have a lot to parking, even though ours is snowed in back there. But it's a clean look. It's so nice to come down the road because the snow gets filthy and dirty and it looks like the town is dirty. And just having that removed makes a massive difference for us. So I wanted to say thank you on that.
Those guys do hard work.
I know.
Costs money too, but we.
I know that.
And it's a real cooperative, private-public type of thing, so we do hire, public excavators to help us, but they have a system down where they keep rotating the trucks, but there are 5 or 6 different subcontractors, plus the town of Red Hook and the village of Red Hook, so it's a very collaborative, cooperative group that does this. They do it relatively quickly.
They do, and one last thing related to the snow, because I've been a beefer for the last few years. Behind us on the parking lot that belongs to K&J or K&C, whatever his name is, Ken, we entered into a handshake agreement with them to allow them to put in lines on our parking area. And now the snow's clean. All right, because they used to dump all the snow back behind it and it would melt on our property and flood us and of course going into the pond on top of it. But now that he's using it for parking spaces because he has a mandate for the businesses that are in there, it's clean, so we're grateful for that moment.
Thanks, Pat. I don't know if everybody knows Pat, but she owns the Red Hook Inn, that's the deal. And, thanks, Pat. Yeah, we try, and it goes to the earlier discussion with highway departments and so forth. We do things that the village needs, and that's something we consider when you're looking at sharing services. It's important to know. Pat also helps us host our rock and roll bands at Hearts Rebel Day, and we're actually negotiating with the Jay Giles band right now.
Oh,
Do you remember them?
We got a couple more people for you from our cruises.
They got some rock and roll.
Yeah.
But we haven't signed an agreement yet, but Beekman likes them.
Same dates though?
Yeah, 20th September.
All right.
And just for the record, if anybody missed Pat on stage with the tubes, she was truly amazing.
Well, I'm singing in the barbershop quartet again for Heart and Soul, and we're looking to come and perform.
Oh, yeah?
So keep me in mind. One last thing I wanted to say is on the Board College tragedy we had a few weeks ago, they're having a memorial down at Bard, if anybody wants to attend, on the 19th of March. I think we should make that known to the public here. And it's at, I think it's 11 o'clock in the morning. The families are coming back out to stay with us, but it's at 11 o'clock on March 19th.
For the 2 girls.
For the 2 girls, yeah.
Thanks. Can you put the family up for free?
All of them, the whole house. We were on a cruise. I mean, that's what I say. And I read it Saturday morning, and I just called Bard, and my friend Peggy, my best friend, came over. But they were there all week, and they are they were blessed. I mean, they sent us notes of thank you, because we didn't charge them, but they sent us notes to say thank you, and they really appreciated it. They had the board chaplain came out and spent time with them in our parlor, so they had some, and they wrote to me and said, that's where the healing began. So it's a really nice feeling for us.
Back to the board, any comments, questions, ideas? We good? I think we need a motion to pay bills after audit.
So,
So, wait a minute, I see, we have another,
Are we going back to the issue of the pond?
oh, I asked for public comment.
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yes, public comment, you can speak.
Dave asked you if you had written the letter to DEC when he brought it up to you in December. Was that ever sent?
We have not sent the letter, we drafted it, and we're talking to our attorneys, only because the current owner is a private owner. We don't own the land or anything. We had nothing to do with the project. It was county and the DEC cleanup. Our position would be that we would like to help you guys, but the wording, we have to be careful with. We're not intervening in another private property owner's rights. You know, we're not looking to attack a fifth party, whatever he is to the whole thing. We don't want to be perceived that way, so hold up on that.
Dave brought up several instances of things in the village minutes that the village participated in taking care of problems with the pond and taking care of water. That basically shows that the village had something to do with it, and now all of a sudden you keep saying it's private property. How could the village have done something back in the 50s and 40s when it was private property then, and they want to exclude themselves from anything now? That does not make sense.
Well,
They let all the water on Fisk Street go into there. They have the water from the plaza across the street, Firehouse Plaza, empties into there through a pipe under Pat Holden's property. They dump on other people other than Pat's property, it's private, but the village has already participated in taking care of the swamp. They put a drain under Fisk Street from my side of the street into the swamp. The village did that. They also took something out a couple of years ago, according to Phoebe.
I have the pictures.
Why did they undo something so water can no longer get from the south side of Fisk Street into the pond? It's a natural flow of water from both South Broadway and Elizabeth Street. It has to go somewhere, it can't lay in the street forever.
Right, we've all been through this, and
And the village wants to take no part in doing anything about helping people.
well, I think the clearest example would be, let's say, not the pond, not your issues, somebody else has a private property issue. We can't go, we're precluded from going on private property and spending the public's money. And it's not a mean thing, it's just the way the law is.
How could they do it back in the 40s and 50s?
Well, I mean,
It was private property then. It's always been private
I
property.
can't answer for 1940s, 50s, I can answer for now.
But a precedent-
It doesn't
precedent was
necessarily
set.
mean that it was done legally at that time. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that the village did it with, the force of law behind it.
But wouldn't it be grandfathered?
You would think that that's such an ugly looking place for the village, that the village would want to help get that place looking better.
We do.
Well, they've done nothing. We've been complaining for 3 years and nothing has progressed.
Well, but it's a difficult thing for us to talk in public, but if a building looks bad, it's the private property owner that has to fix it. We have some zoning code, we could say to a private owner, hey, under law, you have to have a safe building, and it has to be, certain things have to comply with our code. The pond is not a building, it's our recourse there to tell you adjoining owners or the budding owners, clean it up, And we just don't have any mechanism to go in there. It's, we've had conversations with Mr. Queen, with the town supervisor. I had Eric Kiviat from Hudsonia visit us, who talked about our green planting techniques to maybe transpire some of the water out of there.
That's the Soil and Water Conservation District was over there looking.
We've done a lot, but it boils down to, we can't go in and spend every taxpayer's money on land that's owned by 6 people.
Well, the village is taking care of different drainages throughout the village, and they have a schedule. Why can't Fisk Street be pumped up so that water doesn't lay in the street, lay in the, on the south side? Let them clean under there so the water can get back into there, instead of laying around. I mean, we're probably way down on the list of the drainage to be fixed on Fisk Street.
Well, we're on a 3-year rotation, so if we didn't get to your neighborhood in the last, I think we just started that 2 years ago. So this year probably be on the loop. So we rotate now. We just started the rotation, so 3 times, 3 different areas per year, and that's what we budget for. So we try to spread that out. So first year was back here, second year was over here on East Market Street. So the third year will probably be Redwood Estates and in that area back by Fisk and Elizabeth. So that would be on a rotation. And that's something we'll do every 3 years. So that's the intention right now. And like I said, we just started 2 years ago. So hopefully this will be the year. I think it's, if we haven't done it in the last 2 years, it's on the list for this year.
Can I stop in to see where we are on the rotation? Do you have a schedule?
I have a list, and that was put out. I mean, I could dig it up in our minutes, or you can dig it up in our minutes. You know, it's something that we proposed, but
But what you're talking about, Brenda, is a catch basin.
yeah, it's catch basins and culverts, so,
And
you
the
know,
culvert
on
underneath.
our right of ways, yeah.
I got 2 problems with this, all right?
2?
Yeah, because the pipe went in 1889. It's been under these properties under 3 owners, the property of 3 owners that was subdivided technically. I think your lawyer should look at the implied easements, because the easement goes with the land, even though because it existed and it's been under the land, it serves a purpose, and it's an implied easement. And that second thing was going in with the state pipe. That's a different one. The state's got a whole row of easements for that 18-inch line going right down there. And as far as the state's claiming, you're responsible for maintaining that pipeline. You've got every bit of right to go in one of those easements down there and have somebody clean it out or clean it out yourself. And the third thing is, I think, even if you disagree with the idea of using that 8-inch line, then you have to have a pump system, all right? The last storm there in 2011, you pumped north over the East Market, right? And the people were giving you trouble there because you're going over there. It's closer to pump up the hill into the street system right here by Fisk Street, and then flow down to using the 18-inch line. But if the 18-inch line isn't functioning, then that's a safety hazard there. And I believe that it's not functioning. When I was told where it broke in the line opposite the UBS building, that the backup was from where you seen it down at the end. I don't know how far back towards that point, but the backup is within the distance, say, from the UBS buildings on down to where it was supposed to be. And you've got every right to be in there, because I can give you a whole series of maps, easement maps, permanent easement maps, covering that line. So that's really an excuse. I don't understand your lawyer's reasoning. And the third thing is with the Department of Environmental Conservation. They didn't finish the job. I don't think the requirement for that project was what caused that blockage down there and that mess that was down there that they cleaned up. It didn't matter whether it was silt from the street system or that grease and stuff that got dumped there. The project called for cleaning it up. And the fact that they missed in their initial work finding those two pipelines doesn't give them an excuse for not finishing. And that's why I asked you to go back to the Conservation Department, because I think they got an obligation to do it. And as I understand, the job was under the County of Dutchess. Actually, somehow the village is in there. I don't know how that worked. The village of Red Hook was in there somehow. They're claiming that they own the property down there. Then it's in with the, I couldn't find a tax sale or anything. The county took it over. They had the contract, and then Conservation Department signs off and says the work is done, hand it back to the county, and the county signs it over to the village, and the village then turned it over to Kearney. But the reason I'm saying is because it's a health hazard, and that case can be reopened, but you have to ask for it. You're in for 40. I already asked for it. Didn't go very far either.
Well,
That's a case of that horse.
yeah, we've had this discussion, and it's not something we're going to answer here tonight. I mean, I think you folks would love us to hit the gavel and say, okay, $2 million has been earmarked for cleaning the
It's
pond.
not $2 million. I don't know. You like, one time you said 400,000, I'm saying, where'd that come from? Well, I don't see $400,000.
Well, the
I
DOT,
got a guy that's gonna go over there, maybe $10,000.
no,
He said
$10,000.
At least for the 8-inch line. The other is, to me, is state and village responsibility.
Well, if it's $10,000, in my opinion, and I think this board, it's private property, the people affected should chip in and should get the $10,000 and clear out the line that serves their property. It's not the village-owned infrastructure piece.
But if they did that, then blocks in the 18-inch line,
Yeah.
what good does it do? Then it can't go any further.
They're two different lines.
I understand, but if they're supposed to be connected and then that's where the easements are, and if the water is supposed to go from the one line into the other line,
No, it's two different places.
They're two different elevations too.
Yeah.
One's at 18 feet, one's at 10 feet, I believe, so it's.
Folks, in all fairness, we've sat in the conference room, we've tried a lot, we listened to Mr. Queen. We're an active, creative board, and there's just nothing that comes up. To me, the answer, $400,000 number I quoted is, it needs a pumping station to take it to permanent dispersal off to the Soquel through the main center of the village, underground with all easements through the commercial center, which is how one constructs that and does all that is a huge, complex thing. And in the end, it's still private property that we're trying to drain. And it's, to me, in 1889, anything is unlikely to be functional. So, but anyway, we'd be willing to sit with you some more. I think you guys should show some good faith and maybe talk to Hudsonia, talk about some biological greenways to maybe trim the edges and get something going where it's taking some of the water out of the province. But I don't see a mechanical way.
I see,
I'd like to wrap up our meeting too. We got
I see it leaving a safety hazard.
safety.
Yeah, I think it's a safety hazard.
What do you mean?
If it floods, these people can be hurt.
Well, we have shown our willingness to avoid that issue. And, we spend taxpayer money on that, and I was able to do it, like I mentioned in the beginning, through emergency executive power. We can expend some taxpayer money to protect direct health, safety, welfare issues, but we just can't spend everybody's money for junk.
I'd say, why don't you ask the lawyer to talk to you? Ask him about implied easements,
And we've spoken, we have to.
if you wanna know.
No, we know. But anyway, appreciate your input. I just don't see a real red answer. I think if, we always recommend a homeowners association, sit and talk to Hudsonia. He'd meet you on for coffee over at Pat's front porch, and he offered that for like a free first consult, which I mentioned to a few people. And, you know, if we could find something, we would, but we can't throw grant money, we can't throw taxpayer money on private property. Anyway, I'd like to wrap up the meeting. We were talking about a motion to pay bills after audit. Is there such a motion? So moved. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. And then, Mr. Clausen?
I had to make a motion motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
Is there a second?
I would love to say.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, everybody.
Thank you.